we had this really, really big idea for this brand new brand. Why don't we do this in three, two, one? Hey, starting with so. All right, Steven. Well, thank you for being a guest on the podcast. I'm really excited for this one.
I'm happy to be here and excited to talk about this intense topic.
It's not intense. It's pretty on point for any entrepreneur anywhere ever has experienced what we're going to dive into today. But before we get to that, I want to give the people a little bit of history about you and me, because we have known each other for about 15 years now.
Way to date us, man.
Yeah. We met in film school like 300 years ago when we were both studying film, and we were in the film program. It wasn't actually a film school. It was a film program would be a better way to put it.
More
And
of a school than some schools.
what's that?
That it was more of a film school than some schools out there.
That's true. That's absolutely true. But that's where we got introduced to each other, and we became friends. And over the years, we grew in our knowledge, our interests. And that kind of was the basis, how do I put this? That's where we first started thinking about entrepreneurship and freelancing and doing this thing outside of a 9-to-5 job. Was back in those early days of film school.
Yeah, back when we were excited and full of energy.
Full of hope. You've put out 1 million episodes. So tell us about your podcast. Tell us about what's going on there.
So what's the podcast I put out with my film school friend, Sean Anderson, is called the More Movies Please podcast, where it started as a way for us to have an excuse to hang out and also see movies and talk about them, because I love watching movies, discussing them. And I really wanted an excuse to do that, kind of like you with wanting to go to more shows.
Yeah.
Made something that presented that opportunity. And you're right, we have put out a fairly decent amount of episodes, because we'll have at least one episode a week and then a bonus episode each month, because I love torturing people with B movies.
Oh my gosh. We have some throwback stories about B movies, and that's what makes me laugh here.
So that we've put out a lot of episodes that I think we're about to hit our 114th episode.
Oh my gosh.
This goes live, so that's fantastic. And then of course the epic movie that we were tortured in OCC will be coming out in about a month and a half.
A month and a half after this episode airs.
Yeah, right at the end of the year, we're going to finish 2021 with that torture.
Oh my gosh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the final movie of 2021?
Our final movie of 2021 that we actually have everything recorded, including that. Like, we're done with our recordings for 2021.
That's right, because you batch process and you put things out, or not put it out, but you upload it to the feed way ahead of time in order to have that kind of buffer in your production schedule, right?
For production schedule, to make sure we always have content. That occasionally we'll bump stuff if something comes up, or if like we see a movie we really want to record and talk about instantly. Like, for instance, a few weeks back, I actually started getting screeners from Paramount, so I've started adding those episodes in.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
So I'll bump episodes or add a bonus episode when that happens, because hey, when you are able to post something right as it comes out before somebody sees it in the theater, or I'm just like, yep, I'm taking that. Thank you. You have this watermark on the screen the whole time, but you're still so happy because you're like, I have this before anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's crazy. So, but the podcast is going well. If you're over 100 episodes, and when did you officially launch it?
That we officially launched, you know what? I have that exactly. On release date was February 21st, 2020.
Oh, wow. So coming up on 2 years that this has been live.
Yep. And we had started this even before lockdown, but lockdown was official to keep running.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see a spike in your download numbers during lockdown?
Such a spike, which I completely get. And you know what? I'm also happy. I'm happy about that, not just because it gave us a spike in downloads. I was happy because everybody was at home having a hard time, and to see the spike meant we were helping other people get distracted, or at least have someone
Right.
else to virtually talk to or connect with. And that was what meant more to me than just download numbers. I'm like, we're actually connecting with people and
Yeah.
them out in our random hobby corny movie way. It's cool because you get to find stuff that you're interested in and connect with other people and talk about it, and a lot easier than you used to.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely saw that with SoCal Live Music Review because I was able to connect with other artists, other artists, with artists and music lovers. And then with this podcast, I've been able to bring on people that I've had the joy of connecting with in a more professional sense, which is actually one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because we're friends
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, and we've always had the was it the conversation, the understanding, the that our friendship comes before any business deals that we do together. And
Correct.
because we've always had that kind of like baseline of, yo, friends first and then XYZ,
Mm-hmm.
it's allowed us to maintain that line and stay friends over 20 years, 30 years, 50, whatever it's been. I mean, 2020 was about 6 years long. So that
Yeah,
alone should account for another decade of our friendship.
precisely. That was a interesting year.
It was. But that was the year you launched More Movies, Please. And then towards the end of 2020, you approached me about us doing another project together.
Yeah.
And the main thing was we were going to take our shared love for a specific TV show that's been on for many, many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to create a brand around it. We were mainly going to launch a podcast, and then we would also have a YouTube channel to go with it. And we were considering doing a Patreon. We knew we were going to do some sort of social media like Instagram, Twitter. I think at one point we even considered TikTok, like very briefly.
Yeah.
We knew we wanted to build an email list with it, and in the long term, maybe even move towards live events, put together some merch, do some affiliate sales. We had this really, really big idea for this brand new brand. Talk about just the early days of that thought process and then where you decided to approach me about it.
So it was literally during like the midst of lockdown, because we had finally gotten to a point where we were able to see each other outside and walk and actually have an interaction that wasn't completely digital.
Yeah.
We were talking, we had done some screeners like where we virtually watched stuff with each other and talked, and it was just like kind of similar to more movies where it's like I want an excuse to talk about this particular subject and want a reason to spend more time with my friends. So I was like, hey, you got me into this show. We both love it. We could
Mhm.
spend years and lifetimes on it. Let's start doing a podcast on this so that we can share our love with it, build a brand, as you said, and of course, get to spend more time together while being productive.
Now this was in late 2020, and it was when I had decided I needed to bring all of the different things that I was doing under one roof and formally officially establish Johnny Boy Studios.
Yes.
But it was prior to my actually launching this podcast. And I had the outline for it in my head. Actually, I had an outline on paper, but I had the outline. I knew some of the things I wanted to talk about on this podcast, but I don't think I had actually talked to you about it yet, that I wanted to start the Johnny Boy Studios podcast. When you first approached me about, hey, let's start something together, I don't think I had told you
You
initially.
told me that when I approached it, you brought it up as like, that sounds fun, but I want to make sure I'm not taking on too much. And then you actually told me a little, like a very small snippet about your Johnny Boy studio approach for the podcast.
Yeah.
So that did come up then.
Okay. But we did it. We decided to launch, or we decided to move forward with it. And we started recording content in January, February. I forget the exact date. I know it was early in the year, but that was because we wanted to have a back catalog, so that when we launched, we weren't scrambling to record week after week. So similar to what you're doing with More Movies Please, we wanted to do that with this new podcast we were going to launch.
Yeah, we started February 12th, 2021.
Oh, wow. That was our first recording?
Uh-huh. I've got buttons for everything.
Oh my gosh. So how did you feel at that point in those days? How does that make you feel?
How does that make you feel? That I wish I had taken the red pill.
Huh.
But I was excited that I still feel it felt a little dizzy to say the least, because I'm like, okay, new project. I'm excited. This is fun, but having a little trouble finding rhythm. And then also like it's thinking of, hey, I'm gonna swim from California, from like Huntington Beach to Catalina, and you jump in and then you realize you can't see the whole path, that you're
Right.
in water and all you can see is this big massive amount of water, but not knowing how you can get to the other side, even though 5 minutes ago you could see your path.
Yeah. That's
So
a really good way to put it. Yeah.
excited, but needed a better compass.
So that brings us to the meat and potatoes of the real reason I wanted to have you on this podcast. So the date that this goes live, this episode of the Johnny Boy Studios podcast, that was going to be the day that we announced the launch of this other show that we're doing, this other podcast. And it's a very specific date to the show, because should we just tell them what the show is? What the TV show that it was going to be all about?
I feel like if they haven't already turned off or went to a different channel by now, that we should, because they're probably like, would you just tell us already? So we probably should tell them.
So the show that you and I both love is Doctor Who, which originally aired back in 1963 on November 22nd.
Yep.
So this episode goes live November 22nd, and we were going to launch the new show November 22nd. And this episode was originally going to be an announcement, all because, hey, it's November 22nd, the anniversary date of the first episode of Doctor Who. And then we were going to have behind the scenes info. We were going to have special announcements, future plans for this Doctor Who podcast that we were going to do. And of course, it ties back into that whole anniversary date. And it was very, very significant.
It was going to be a very, I wouldn't say monumental, but the release on this date was going to be very significant, because it was going to speak to true Whovians, because it was going to show the emotional connection we have with the show, that like most people go like, hey, we have Christmas, we have July 4th, and we were going to be like, hey, November 22nd is a Who holiday for us.
And for all of you who don't know, a Whovian is someone who is a fan of Doctor Who and the Doctor Who universe. Yep. So because we are both, you guys know I'm a nerd, because we're both like super fans of Doctor Who, we consider ourselves to be Whovians, and we consider ourselves to be extreme Whovians, because we actually started, this is a little bit deeper than other people, but there's two sets of Doctor Who. There's classic Who and there's new Who. So the show aired from 1963 until the mid 80s, and then it had a 1995 movie. That's all considered classic Who. Yep. It came back in 2005 and it airs up until today. There's a new season airing right now, and that's considered new Who. So a lot of people focus on either just classic or just new Who, but you and I, we were going to talk about the entire universe and the whole big shebang of Doctor Who.
From we were going to start like right from the beginning of the Doctor Who content.
Yeah. And we did. We recorded, I want to say something like 40 episodes, 40, 35, 40.
We recorded let's see. We were about to hit 30.
Really? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Okay, I can't count.
Well,
Common Core math.
um, each of those episodes had like each story arc had like anywhere from 4 to 7 parts.
That's true.
So
That's
we
true.
did a lot of watching, and it was just we were going by story, so we wouldn't flood
Right.
everybody's ears with here's part one, here's part seven, come
Yeah,
in 2 days for part 20.
exactly. And we had a distribution plan of how often we were going to publish.
Mhm.
We had this all really well outlined, well thought out, and it really just came down to the execution of getting this done. And what I mean by execution is we just needed to watch the show
Mhm.
and then record an episode and edit that and then put it up into the feed. But as you can probably imagine, listeners, we uh we decided not to launch that brand right now.
That is correct.
We put it on the shelf, we put it on the back burner, and we we consciously made the choice not to move forward with it at this moment in our lives.
Yeah, that it definitely took a little bit of emotion on my end to like go, oh, we got to pause. Like, I
Yeah.
luckily I knew it based on like how often we had to push stuff back because things were coming up and just trying to balance everything. But I'm like, but I don't want. I like it felt like defeat to me, even though I knew it wasn't. It was more of it was a logical move to put it on pause.
Yeah. You have a full-time job, you have
Mhm.
a almost full-time workload in your freelancing career. You've got family commitments, you're moving, you already have a podcast.
Yep.
I have a full-time job. I have a podcast with Johnny Boy Studios. I have a podcast with SoCal Live Music Review, even though there's nothing new coming out at the moment. Although there might be because live music is back.
Yes.
Um, I have a YouTube channel I'm diving more into. I have a photography career. I've branched off. I now have a coaching career, a coaching practice, a writing practice. We both have incredibly full plates already.
Mhm.
And so adding another full-time commitment into the mix in our lives, I can 100% understand why you would say it feels like a defeat, but it wasn't like, no, we're not doing this. It was, no, we're not doing this right now.
Exactly. And the nice thing was emotionally it felt like a defeat because I'm not used to stopping on something like I will power through, but then the adult
Mhm.
portion of my brain was just, or our brains was just like, hey, you know what? Our timeline that we had committed for this was our timeline, that
Yeah.
not letting anybody else down, that we can still do this. We're just going to do it right. And the best way would be to put it on pause so that we can
Yeah.
restructure, regroup, and give Doctor Who the respect it deserves.
Yeah. Because we both love the show. We both love the fandom. Um,
I've watched the new episodes twice because I'm like dissecting it in my head.
we're going to save that conversation for that podcast because,
Yeah.
oh man, there's some stuff where you're just like, really, really. But even still, we're both super fans of this show still. And just not putting out the content that we both know we are capable of and we both know we love, it's like a punch in the gut.
Hmm.
And yeah, we had to make that adult decision, like you said. We postponed the launch, we paused recording any new episodes, we delayed all the announcements. In fact, this is the first time we are publicly talking about this other thing that we were planning to do.
Which does feel nice because then it brings it like a little breath of you're still there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because I feel as entrepreneurs, as creatives, as freelancers, as content creators, you need to know when it's time to put something on the back burner.
Yes.
And you need to know when it's time to just take that step back, reevaluate, pivot, as it's not Joey who says it, Chandler,
Ross.
Ross. See, yeah, that can
Mhm.
tell I'm not a fan. You need to know when to pivot, and you need to know when to go in a new direction, or just press pause on something. We
Mhm.
didn't hit stop, we pressed pause because we both know this is something that we want to do.
Yeah.